All right. Hello. How's it going? I really want to start by just saying that I am not a webinar expert, but hopefully I can provide some value. For those of you who could make it, awesome. I'm excited to spend some time with you. And for those of you who couldn't make it, shame on you, and that's okay because I'm going to send this recording out afterwards. But hopefully, I can provide some good value for you to save you some money on your property taxes by accomplishing a protest, which is something that I think a lot of people are concerned about doing. They feel like it's going to be more difficult than it is, but it's not too bad, and the payoff is pretty decent. So, with that being said, full disclosure, I am not a property tax expert. I'm just a guy who protests my own property taxes, and hopefully, I can share with you some stuff. I happen to be a real estate agent as well in the local area, so it does give me a little bit more insight, probably, than most people, but that's okay. I'm going to share with you all of those insights, and hopefully, we can get you to saving some money. Um, let's go ahead and dive right in. And throughout this process, just so you know, I am a regular dude with a family and dogs, so hopefully there won't be too many distractions during this. But I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible, but also being able to provide as much value as possible. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to get to all of them if there are any. And either way, just know that I'm here as a resource so if you need to reach out or anything with questions, I got you back. So let's see if I actually practiced this a couple times trying to figure out how to screen share the right way. So okay. So this is my beautiful slide deck. Now, I was an instructor in the Air Force, so I know how to teach the boring standard death by PowerPoint way, but I'm gonna try to make it not that bad. But I'm gonna talk to you today about protesting your property taxes. Now, this is for Texas. All of Texas has the same process. We're going to use Bexar County as an example because I'm in San Antonio, but whether you're in Guadalupe County, Comal County, Bandera, anywhere in Texas, the process is going to be the same, but the difference is going to be where you go to get the documents and where you actually fill out that protest and everything like that. But today, let's use my little clicky thing. Uh, as with teaching in the military, there's always got to be an orientation and an overview. So this is our overview. Here are some of the things we're going to talk about today, just so that way you understand. I had the slides numbered, so that way you're not worried about, when is this going to be over? Pretty clear indicator right there. But we're going to talk about property taxes as a whole, hopefully help you understand those property taxes. We're going to talk about the notice that you would have received in the mail. You should have received it. If not, there's other ways to get that information as well. We're going to talk about the protest process, what it looks like to gather evidence, what evidence would be useful, um, how to file, the steps to actually file that protest, and then what that hearing looks like. I have been protesting my property taxes for the past few years and have had some massive success. But it was a difficult process to understand in totality what everything looks like. So I'm going to try to put that all together for you today. Um, so like I said, we're gonna talk about understanding property taxes. We're gonna go over the different deadlines because if you didn't know, there is an actual deadline to filing these property taxes. And if you miss it, then you miss that opportunity for the whole year. We're talking about evidence gathering. Like I said, local focus to San Antonio and surrounding areas and around Bexar County. But if you are outside of Bexar County, no problem. Like I said, same process. The information still applies. We're going to talk about some practical tools and then what other options you have as well, because some people might not want to go through the process. But of course, why is this important? 67% of people who file a protest actually save money on their property taxes. It usually takes around 30 minutes in order to accomplish it. It depends on how detailed you want to get with your evidence and how much you actually want to put together. It costs you $0 to file is actually free, and people on average save about $500. So not too bad. Now, the $500 with 30 minutes of work, that's pretty decent in my opinion. I don't make $1,000 an hour. That would be fantastic, but I don't. So this is absolutely worth my time. So understanding property taxes, it's kind of difficult to know something that you have no idea what you should be looking for or anything like that. I certainly did not grow up with a financial education background, so these kind of things were foreign to me for a really long time. But I'm going to talk to you about a couple things that maybe you didn't know, and hopefully that helps out. So the annual assessment. So every year, the county and my county, Bear County, they'll go through and assess every single property for its value. And that's what they use to determine the tax amount that you pay for property taxes each year. Now, because Texas doesn't have a state tax, they use property tax to basically recoup those funds, and it goes into the state and they use it for certain things. Now, they do that assessment based on January 1st. So what that means is January 1st is the date that they're looking at for data. So as we move forward and talk about different things and compiling that evidence, we have to look at it through the lens of what was my property worth January 1st. If you had a major hailstorm in like the past couple weeks, then that doesn't apply towards the property tax assessment because it didn't happen on January 1st. So keep that in mind as we continue to move forward. When we talk about market value, the market value is related to what somebody would pay for your house in its current condition, or specifically the condition it was in as of January 1st. So if your home, much like many homes, unless it's like a brand new construction and it looks fantastic and everything, if your home has some things, some maintenance items that need to be done, then we have to consider that towards what somebody would pay for your house. For instance, if you have like, one of like if your HVAC is going out or one of your major systems is going out, it's old, it's 20 years old. I have a 22-year-old home. So there's a lot of things that definitely need to be done. Seller or buyers would ask for. That's what I would use to determine my market value. And you can get help with this from like a real estate agent, you know one, me. And we can kind of help, determine that number for you. Um, and then your notice that you get, everybody gets this notice. It's called the notice of appraised value. And that notice ends up being mailed, and you should receive that notice in the mail. And if you don't, there's other ways to get to that, and we'll cover that. But if you look at these numbers over here, this kind of breaks down what your property tax goes to. If you go online, you can see at if you look up whatever your county, go to the Google machine, whatever your county is, property lookup, then it'll give you the place that you can go and put in your address, and it'll show you a breakdown of all your values, and then your taxing jurisdiction. These are the different taxing jurisdictions, which means that you'd be paying um, per $100, you're paying 54 cents to the city of San Antonio, 27 cents to Bear County, a dollar to a dollar 34 for your school districts, and then your hospital district. That's kind of how it's broken down. And the median home value, not the median home value of those that are sold, that looks a little bit different when you're looking at like sales data, but the median home value of all those homes that were assessed in my county was $22,000 with an average annual tax of $4,171. So that's a lot of tax for a $222,000 house. But if you file your tax protest, um, you could potentially save anywhere between $200 and $800. And in this little cute little chart right here is just a little distribution of where it all goes. So as you can see, a lot of it goes towards schools. So when your kids are goofing off at school, you need to remind them that you're paying a ton of money for that education. But why should you protest it? I know we kind of went over that a little bit. Now, these possible savings, the 5 to 20% reduction, these aren't just arbitrary numbers out in the ether where you could save a little bit of money and it takes a long time to realize it. I'm telling you, when I protested my property taxes, not last year, but the year before, my taxable value of my home decreased by $80,000. And $80,000 at a 2 point something percent tax rate, comes out to about like $1,500 to $1,600 in a year. Now, so for me, I spent a little bit of time digging, maybe a couple of hours, but I ended up saving about $1,600 on my tax bill just by protesting. So it's magic. It's the thing that if you're not doing it, you need to start doing it now. And then also, it comes with no risk. So when you protest your property taxes, there is not the risk of your property taxes increasing, only the potential for them to decrease. So we'll go over the outcomes and everything here in a little bit, but no risk. Also, it's time efficient. You can knock it out online in 10 to 15 minutes. Now, like I said, you can dig deeper and find, some really good nuggets of evidence that can really help you when you go deliver that evidence uh, to the county. And it could take a little bit longer, but a lot of times it only takes between 10 and 30 minutes to knock out. So there's a 67% success rate in filing these tax or in protesting these property taxes. So it's, pretty much you might as well do it. So why is it 67%? Now, the way that they do these assessments is they do what's called a blanket appraisal or a blanket assessment, which means that they don't know the intricate details of your home like you do. All they know is a bunch of homes, and they use computer systems and then go back and refine them based off of the general knowledge, general information about your property that's publicly available. Now, you may have some information that is not in line with what they have. And that would be a perfect opportunity, such as if your home is listed as a 4 bedroom, but it's a 3 bedroom, or if the size of your lot is incorrect or anything like that. They're not fine-tooth combing this data to make sure that it's accurate. And they actually expect you to be the one to do that and let them know if they're wrong. Sometimes they use outdated sales data, and sometimes the assessment is just flat out inaccurate. Your next door neighbor might have the same house as you, and there may be a wildly different assessment on their house than your house. So we're going to exploit that inaccuracy and save some money in the meantime. Now, again, one of my biggest priorities in this is just to get you to do it, because I think sometimes that's the hardest part, is just going out there and doing it. So that's why I have all this information for you. So if your house is worth $200,000, if that is your assessed value, you have the potential to save on average about 450 to $500. If your house is 400,000, then we're looking at more like $900 in savings. So as you can see, it's a pretty good amount of money. So just knock it out, right? And if you're scared to knock it out, then just shoot me a text, give me a call, and I'll talk you through it, and we'll get this knocked out together because I want you to save some money. So protest timeline in Bexar County. Again, January 1st is the assessment date. That is when the property value is determined. It may not have been completed on January 1st, but that's the data that they use. So keep that in mind when we're submitting our evidence, that all of the data, you cannot use sales data for anything that's beyond January 1st. Keep that in mind. April is when that notice of appraised value comes out. It should be out. It's usually sent out mid-April. I received mine already. And if you didn't receive it in the mail, that's okay. You can, like I said, go to the old Google machine, go to your county property lookup, and it'll give you a tool that you can search for your property by your address or by your name. And it'll give you a breakdown of all of your taxes and the values and the information it has about your land, about your specific property. And then it'll tell you your different taxing jurisdictions. And in that section, it'll give you the notice of appraised value, and you can find it right there. That notice of appraised value has some really important information. If you have trouble finding it, then contact your county because they can provide it to you via email as well. And being that it is the 28th of April, we have about 17 days to get that protest initiated. As long as you file it before that date, then you can kind of go back and forth and get everything locked down. But like I said, May 15th is the protest deadline. It's either that or 30 days after the notice. So if they just didn't mail you your notice and it comes in the mail today and it's dated with today, then you will have 30 days from that point. I always like to err on the side of caution and also, err on the side of maybe verifying some of this information yourself because I don't work for the county. I am just going off of the experience that I've had and some things that I've looked up. But yeah, 30 days after you've received that. May through June is when they'll do the informal hearings. We'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. And then in the event that your protest isn't settled during the informal hearing, then you would move on to the formal hearing, which is the appraisal review board process. If you don't like the outcome of that, then you also have the opportunity to file an appeal. But just a couple things to remember, even if you haven't gotten your appraisal notice, you still want to file by that deadline. Um, Online filing is the fastest and provides instant confirmation, so you know that it's good to go. And then also just understand that the informal settlement accounts for, well, resolves for 70% of those protests. So only 30% actually have to go to the appraisal review board. It just depends on you if you like the number that they came back with, or if you have a little bit more evidence that you want to submit that you didn't submit initially. If you miss the deadline, then you have to wait till the next year. There are no retroactive, like just backtracking to that before that deadline or anything like that. If you miss it, then you got to go on to the next one. But here are the steps. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is review your appraisal notice, your notice of appraised value. And that is relatively simple. They all look the same in Texas, maybe with like some slight deviations. But at the top, you're going to find your property ID and your account number. Those are important because when you go online, it's going to ask you for that information. It's super straightforward, super simple going online. And after this, my intent is to send out some links and another like document that kind of walks you through that process as well. But also on that notice of appraised value is going to be your appraised value for your current year and previous years for you to compare. Also is going to have your property details, square footage, land value, and improvements. That's the part where you're going to want to look at it and make sure that everything's accurate. Because if it's not, then we got to shoe in, and it's going to be pretty easy to get that value protested. It also has the dates for that, and then also some information on homestead as well. If this is not a webinar about the homestead exemption, but if you have not filled out your homestead exemption, you absolutely definitely want to fill out that homestead exemption because it's pretty massive, especially now. Recently, it changed to $100,000 exemption off your property taxes. But the big thing is that it, one, protects your value from increasing by a certain amount. I think it's like 10%, which is great in this volatile market. I'm pretty sure everywhere in Texas is experiencing some volatility, some up and down. But those who had their homestead in place before prices shot up didn't have to deal with the massive change in your taxes and stuff. And then also, if you get sued because it's your homestead, they have a much harder time coming after that property. So when should you protest? But in my opinion, you should always protest. There's no penalty. You can just do it, and if it doesn't work out, then no big deal. Try again next year. But here are a couple reasons why it would be valuable for you to protest, and you have a really good shot at winning. If your value has increased at over 10% in the past year, if it's higher than similar properties, and going back to that website where you can search for your property, you can also look at your neighbors' houses. You can look at everybody on the street and kind of see where their properties are lying when it comes to value. And if your home is way off, that is one of the best ways to justify an inaccurate property value assessment. And then there's property conditions, and this is the big one. So property conditions, this is what has helped me out a lot. You have a few different ways to justify this, but one of the easiest, most simple ways to justify this is just simple photos of all the discrepancies in your house. And you're going to want to make it look as bad as possible, right? Because you want to be as clear as possible. If somebody were to buy my house right now, I know that I'm going to need to replace like 27 windows because I have fogging in the windows. I have some uh, some leaks in the seals and stuff like that. I know that my HVAC is getting pretty old. My water heater's probably going to need to get replaced. And these are things that a seller is going to ask for, or they're going to move on to the next property because those things in my house might not be the way that it should be presented if it were for sale. And then also you're going to look at data errors. So like I said, if it's the property details are incorrect, then that is something that you're going to want to bring up in your evidence. So timing is critical. It says, review within 1 week of receiving the notice to allow time for evidence gathering. Doesn't matter if you haven't done it yet. Literally, you can start gathering evidence right now. You have plenty of time to knock it out. I would say that the administrative burden for me when I filed my property taxes this last year was less than an hour, and I go pretty in depth. I'm a very, I don't know, like I like to use a lot of logic in everything that I do, so it's hard for me to just go say, hey, I think that it's worth this. I want to provide a bunch of justification, and it probably took me about an hour. And then document everything, take photos of everything, because the more information that you have, the more compelling your argument or protest is. And then also just keep all these records. There's just a good general practice to keep all the records of everything about your home. So that way in the future, if you need to protest again, if you need to file something, there's a discrepancy with the amount that you're paying, then you want to have those records. So also protest, I know or pro tip, I know we talked about this. Even if you haven't received the notice, you can still protest. Just check your property's value online. So moving on to gathering the evidence. Uh, Again, this is because the informal process, you don't actually get to speak. You get to type out a little note about what you think about your property's value, but the gathering of the evidence is the most critical part. So using comparable sales data, you can get it from a few different places. You can go look at sold data on Zillow. You can go online. You can reach out to your local realtor that has access to some sold data, and they can pull that up for you. But you're going to want to find comparable properties. That means same bedroom, same bath, same number of stories, uh, relatively the same type of layout and everything. And then you're going to want to list out those property addresses, but also list out those details, because the more detailed you can be, the easier it is to go and have them accept that stuff. And in the event that you go to the appraisal review board in person, then they have enough data to kind of substantiate your claims. Additionally, property condition is super duper important. Things like foundation issues, roof damage, old systems, HVAC and electrical, drainage, if you are in a flood zone, all of that stuff, anything that you have that would potentially dissuade a buyer from paying that price for the home, those are things that you want to bring up. Now, you also can use professional valuations. That means that you hire an appraisal or an appraiser to come in and give you an appraisal, or maybe you've refinanced recently and you've had an appraisal done, or you just bought the property and you have the appraisal that shows that it's actually valued less than what the county's valuing it at. That is something that is super substantial and can be very helpful. Now, if you're trying to decide if you want to get an appraisal for this, you're going to want to put a lot of thought into that and make the determination if the cost of the appraisal is likely going to be worth more than the amount that you're saving. And then also you can have a realtor's CMA. And, obviously if you're in my local area where I have access to the MLS, I can help out with this. But the caveat is that when I provide a CMA, I still have to, it has to be a completely unbiased opinion. So I'm unable to provide you with a CMA that shows a price that's lower than what it's actually worth. So kind of go, use your judgment and kind of like what tools you want to use for that process. But I absolutely can at least guide you, give you some a good way forward to help find some things to justify that as well. Pro tip, create a single PDF with all of the evidence, including a table of contents and clear labels. And This will help you organize your documentation. If you want to send me a screenshot or send me that PDF to see if it like makes sense or I find a way that might present it a little bit better, I am happy to review that and kind of just give you you know, some bro advice. But you know, this is one of the most critical parts of it because your evidence is what they're going to look at to determine. And then step three is the filing of your protest. Now, this part is the easy part, actually. The fastest method with instant confirmation is going to be the online method. So if you go to here is like the BCAD online portal. It's very simple. You can find it in the old Google machine. And like I said, I'll send out some links as well. But just bcad.org/online portal, your county that you're in, if you're not in Bexar County, which a lot of people are not, is going to be very similar, but just go to the old Google machine, you can find it. And in that, you can file your protest in like 10 to 15 minutes, just minus the amount of time that you're going to put into the evidence gathering. Now, the standard method, but I wouldn't even call it the standard method, that's just what the county calls it, is by mail. Me personally, I am not a huge fan of mailing things and hoping that they got there in time or that they didn't get lost, but you absolutely can do that. If you do it by mail, then you have to have the correct documentation, correct forms, and we'll go over that here in a sec. And then you would send all of that evidence in, and then they would notify you of receipt of that protest, and then the same process kind of goes on. Or you can do the Dropbox, which is not the county's preferred method. I've never tried it. Feel free, but typically they'll have drop boxes at the appraisal district where you can drop that packet of evidence in there as well. Now, if you're going to mail it, well, let's backtrack. If you go online, all of the essentials, that is going to be in an online form. So you don't have to worry about trying to find different forms to put that in there. But if you do it by mail, then you're going to need the notice of protest form completely filled out. You're going to need your property ID and owner ID, which is something that you're going to need even to file it online. You're just going to need that information. You can find it on your notice of appraised value, whether that's by mail or online. Then you're going to need your proposed value. So uh, that's not just saying very vaguely, I think that my home is worth less. It's an actual number that you assign. And that's the number that you'll be negotiating with the appraisal district to find a good balance, or maybe they accept your number. And then obviously your contact information. Then your supporting evidence is going to be as robust as you want it to be. But some of the things that are very helpful is your comparable sales data. So if, like I said, you are going into a platform like Zillow or Realtor.com or something like that, and you find sales data for your neighborhood, um, you can put all that stuff together and have that as evidence, as well as property condition photos, foot stomp. I highly recommend the property condition photos because I believe that based off of my experience, that is one of the best things that you can do. And when I went to the appraisal review board, they told me that those photos were some of the most effective, compelling parts of my evidence. And then you can provide repair estimates. So let's say for my windows that are fogging, if I were to go to a window repair person and have them actually write me out a quote, I can include that in my evidence as well. And those are very objective things that tend to have carry a lot more weight than me just saying, hey, my windows, I think somebody's probably going to pay $20,000 less, right? And then a summary cover letter that kind of just helps organize your stuff. If you go to the in-person review board, then each person is going to have a copy of that. Each of the reviewers are going to have a copy of that, and having it organized really, really helps. And oh, and then if you do go to the appraisal review board, they're going to have you submit your evidence packet, and that evidence packet needs to be under 10 megabytes. So if you are having trouble with that, if you're not a computer whiz, definitely reach out to me or Google it or do whatever, but you're going to need to compress those files sometimes to make sure that they fit. And, and my button's not working. Let's try this again. In the meantime, while I'm reloading these slides, let's see. All right, I didn't actually have something to say for the meantime. I was just trying to kill time. Let's see, where are we at? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Filing your protest. Okay, the hearing process. Now, this is the part that freaks everybody out. Um, you might not be like me, but I've been to court before and had to sit there. It was for traffic, right? You know, who hasn't been to court for a traffic violation? And when you sit there, it feels like you're in trouble and you have no idea what's going on. It's super high pressure. You have one shot at this, and that's how I felt when I went to the formal hearing, the appraisal review board, and I was pretty concerned. But once I got through it, I found out that it's not that bad. And so I'm here to tell you that it's not that bad. You're going to get through it. It's going to be great. Like I said, 70% don't go through that process. You'll go through the informal hearing. And then also, you don't have to ever go through the formal process, but I highly recommend it if it comes to that point and you get the opportunity to reduce your taxes further. So for the informal hearing, that's conducted virtually. Most of the time for those informal hearings, they will just get your request and then they'll respond online and then you get to accept it or not. So let's say that I had a $400,000 house and it appraised at 400,000, but I thought it was worth 350,000. I would submit my evidence, submit my justification, everything that I need, file that claim, and then they might come back and say, hey, your home was, we believe that it's valued now after seeing everything that you submitted. We believe it's valued at 390. It decreased by $10,000. That's a point where I can accept it or I can reject it and move on to to the formal hearing. Now, I'll tell you that when you get there, or when you get to the informal hearing process, you can negotiate, you can go back and forth. You can accept it, you can reject it, move forward. If you reject it, then it automatically goes to the appraisal review board. Now, when you get to the appraisal review board, or if you're deciding whether or not you should go to the appraisal review board, then I want you to know that when I did my taxes a couple years ago, um, by going to the appraisal review board, I was able to further decrease my assessed value by $30,000. So what I got from the informal process was decent, but I still went to the appraisal review board, mostly because I wanted to find out what it was like and have the opportunity to share it with you guys. But when I went there and submitted my evidence and had the conversation, they dropped it by another $30,000, which is about just under like $700 in the year that I got for just showing up. Now, when I was there, they told me, so they have a panel of 3 members and they are an unbiased opinion. They don't work for the uh, appraisal district, and they are obviously not there just to decrease your taxes, but they will give you an unbiased look. And they told me that the appraisal district, they know that their blanket appraisals are incorrect, um, but the responsibility falls on the homeowner to go and correct them. So they are fully prepared to lower your taxes. Now, they'll give you an opportunity, or at least they gave me an opportunity to decide whether or not the appraisal district goes first, because they will have an appraisal district representative, they will have you, and then they'll have a panel of 3 to listen to both of your sides of the story and then make that decision, make that determination. And of course, if given the opportunity, I'm going to have them go first because I want to know what they have to say. So that way I can kind of tailor my presentation or my approach to what they have to say. Your presentation should be anywhere between 5 and 7 minutes. That's about the amount of time that they allocate for you to share everything. I didn't take that long because when I'm nervous, I kind of talk fast. So I just went through it in like a minute and a half and didn't take the rest of my time. But they'll have that discussion. Typically, they're with you. They will write their notes, and then each of the 3 will submit their own opinion of the value, and then somebody will go in, and the person that's presiding over it will look at all the different values, go back, have them determine what they want to settle on, and then they present that to you. Now, alternatively, the appraisal district, they can offer a different value as well. So like I said, there's the appraisal review district or appraisal district representative, and then there's you against each other. It's like a court battle. And they might say, hey, I'm willing to drop it by X amount. When they did that for me, um, I kind of got coached by the panel of three, and I was like, I don't know, maybe I should take it. Maybe I should. I think he dropped it by like 10,000. And I was like, maybe I should take it. And they were like, well, it's up to you. You can take that, or you can allow us to decide the value. And I chose to allow the panel of three to make that decision, and they dropped it by another $20,000. So just an anecdotal story of how it went for me. Could be different for you, but that's how it went for me. When you give your presentation, make sure to be concise and organized. Make sure that everybody understands what you're talking about. Stick to the facts and don't just say, I feel like it should be this. Have some level of justification. Practice it a couple times. You will never have it down perfect, so don't over practice. Bring some copies for them, although they'll have that evidence. It's always a good practice to have some backup just in case there's any issues. When I got there, they couldn't pull up the email or whatever. They hadn't even looked at it until I showed up. So I actually did bring some backup copies and it was very helpful. Focus starting with the strongest arguments, just so that way you don't end up running out of time going into the minutia and then talking about the major foundation issue that you have on your home. Start with the most important stuff first and arrive early to give yourself an opportunity to check in and do all of that. But that's all the fun part. And like I said, a lot of times you don't have to even get to that point because I've only done the appraisal review board hearing once. Last year, I didn't have to go do it because the value that I got actually satisfied me. I thought it was pretty good. So, success rates by evidence type. This is just some statistics that I pulled. Recent comps and comparable homes and condition photos, 85% success rate. Professional appraisal, 80%, but also you're paying for the appraisal, so it's like give and take. And then comparable sales only 60% and condition issues only 55%. So obviously the more that you have, the higher probability you have of success. So after the hearing, if you win, awesome, congratulations. You give me a call, we go celebrate, and your value reduction happens immediately. And that's for that entire tax year. So your tax bill is going to reflect the new amount. Save your documentation for next year, just so that way you even have like the structure and everything like that. You might have some things that are still issues in the next year. It'll save you time compiling that evidence. And if there's no change, the original value remains. You can consider appealing. So this is talking about if you are at the appraisal review board and they don't change it, you can still appeal that. And then also if you're just like, all right, there's no change, got it. Then you just start planning for next year's protest. But you do have some appeal options. Um, I haven't actually done an appeal past the appraisal review board, but you have a 30-day window to file that appeal, and they'll actually ask you if you want to appeal that while you're at that appraisal review board, so you can make that determination from there. For next year, make sure to keep your documents. So if you have any needed repairs and you have estimates and everything, hold on to everything that you can, so that way you can make it even easier for next year. Start creating a little process. So I have a file folder that has my protest documents from previous years, and I just take that and just replicate that and use it every single year. And then monitoring the market, just keeping an idea of your home's value. That way you know whether or not you need to protest. Um, and if you need help keeping up with your home value, uh, you know, you know an agent, you know a realtor. And then set up reminders. So especially even now, I would put something on your calendar for like April 13th, just in case you don't get around to it by then, that you need to knock that out so you don't forget. Um, Appeals must be filed within 30 days. Oh, and then you can also get legal representation um, for your court appeals. Now, you can get legal representation for the entire process. There are people that, there are lawyers that actually protest these taxes and do it for you. You pay them, obviously, and they take a percentage of your savings. And there's also just tax protest professionals like companies, like Onwell is one that keeps showing up on my Facebook feed just because his tax protest season, you can use any of those people and they will remove all of the, not all, but most of the process that you have to do it. But understand that it's not that difficult to do it yourself, and it might be worth exploring doing it yourself anyways. Um, and there's obviously Facebook groups and different things that you can join just to kind of stay up to date. Special considerations. So these are things like outside of just the black and white uh, property condition issues and stuff. So area trends, if you're in a volatile area, which who's not, if you're in a volatile area, then you can kind of use that as justification because a lot of times if you're in one of those areas, checking the property values through that website on the Google machine will tell you what your neighbor's home's appraised at. And they tend to be a lot more off in areas that the prices are up and down. So definitely going to want to look at that. School districts, that's really just if you have a if you are in a school district that is like a really good school, then you're paying a lot in taxes, which doesn't help you with the evidence gathering, but it does tell you that the more money that you get off your property tax value, the more money that you save. So something really important. Some considerations too is like your exemptions is just another way to save. So you can get up to 100% if you're a disabled veteran. If you're 100% disabled, you pay no property taxes. You kind of don't got to worry about it. Still might be beneficial to protest your taxes just to keep them low, especially if you also have a homestead exemption on that. So if you were to go sell your house, you have a homestead exemption year to year, they're staying low, then that kind of helps with your resale value. If you have not done your homestead exemption, then I highly recommend getting it done because it's super important and it's super duper simple. Same thing, you can knock that out online. And then there's senior exemptions. If you're in a flood zone or in an airport flight pattern, historic district, and there's a lot of stuff going on, those are things to bring up as well. Just because they can affect the property value. Sometimes if you're in a specific district that's more expensive, then maybe it'll negatively affect your property value, meaning that it can go up, but just look at the things that are surrounding your property and see how they can play into your evidence, into your argument, essentially, for decreasing that property value. Now, of course, there are some resources and tools available to you. Again, they're all over the place. They're really easy to find. I will try to send out some stuff for all of you who registered. And if you just happen to watch this video and you want some information, just reach out to me directly. You can reach out on Facebook, Instagram. If you have my number, shoot me a text. And I got you. I can send you some of this stuff. But definitely your county's website, the Texas Comptroller website, is a place that they have guides, they have walkthroughs and step by step. But like I said, the biggest challenge is that you don't know what you don't know. But now that you've watched this, now you know. There are tax calculators and property search websites like Redfin, Zillow, Trulia, all those places have a search function where you can go back and see sales data from a specific period. The forms that you're going to need is the notice of protest, and if you're submitting actual evidence as an evidence affidavit, again, if you do this online, then you're gonna have already completed all of that stuff. It walks you through it step by step, so you don't have to go gather these forms and make sure that they're filled out appropriately. Here are some of the phone numbers that you can use to get in touch with the people in Bexar County, but again, there's a lot of counties represented in Texas and even in San Antonio area. So go to the old Google machine, or if you're having trouble, reach out to me. I'll help you find it. And the additional support, like I said, you can always hire somebody to do this. Unfortunately, you can't hire me because I'm a real estate agent and tax um, protest is not my job. And I'm not trying to get caught up in the middle of it with giving you some advice that may not be completely sound. I recommend that you still go out and do your own independent research, make sure that you understand completely what's going on. But this is my experience of the process, and hopefully it has been helpful to you. And always, again, feel free to reach out and let me know if you need help with any of this process, if you have any questions or anything like that. And obviously, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, I got your back too. But Anyways, have an amazing night. I hope to chat with you soon. All right, bye. And I'm gonna find this button.